Rachel. Good evening, everyone. Would like to call the order of the Tuesday, September 7th, in the year 2021, Rutherford County, Tennessee Public Works and Planning Committee. We have a fairly full agenda, so we will get right to it, including some interesting discussion coming up in other business. So first item of business would be approval of minutes, and I'd like to call on Vice Chair Steve Piercy for that.
Chairman Cush, I have looked the minutes over, and I would move for their approval.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second from Shanto. All in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. There is no Highway Department report this evening, so we will go right into building codes. So Tanya, if you will make your way up to the lectern, we will proceed.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. I will keep this quick because you're all in a hurry. All right, month of August, building codes issued a total of 339 permits. 84 of those were single-family dwellings, which is up just very, very slightly from last month and also up from last year, for a total revenue of $129,535 in building permit fees. And if nobody has any questions, I'll move on to development tax and school facilities tax. Development tax, we collected $177,000 even, and school facilities tax, a total of $79,792.20 for a total of $256,792.
Any questions? All right.
Am I good? And zoning enforcement, we had 96 inspections this month. We had our entire zoning enforcement staff was out for about 10 days in the month of August due to COVID. So we just did the bare necessities in August.
Okay. What is the current status of staff?
Everybody's back. They all come back September 1st.
All right. Good. Any questions for any of those reports? If not, would need a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Oh, we have two ties. Would one of those be a second?
I'll be the second.
Wayne, Mr. Blair will be a second. All right. All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Tanya, any other business?
No, that does it.
Yeah.
Did you have any questions? Well, the school facilities tax, I was trying to go over numbers last week, actually, when I got these numbers. And I really think, I'm convinced that we're not going to be able to kind of accurately gauge where our school facilities tax is going for about a year. Because we're collecting development tax and school facilities tax, and the school facilities tax, we only collect half of it up front. So it's really hard to gauge how it's going to do. We're also not collecting the lump sum amount that we typically collected when a plat was developed, or excuse me, when a plat was recorded. So that's not in those figures either. So it's kind of all over the place. The total square footage that we had last month was 83,140 is what we permitted. That was school facilities tax applied to. The development tax did not apply to. Does that help? Does that just confuse it more? I know it is. And honestly, it's going to be a good six months at least before we start to see what impact the school facilities tax is going to have.
We had 206,000. August, we had 79. Why is that such a substantial difference?
In Murfreesboro, we had an apartment complex in August. Excuse me, July. Not an apartment complex, an assisted living facility.
What number did you use for your budget? I assume you had to put a guesstimate out there.
For school facilities tax, we didn't have to do I don't know whether Lisa did, I wasn't asked for one, so I didn't. You mean a proposed revenue?
All right, thank you.
Well, hopefully, months going forward, we can figure out some auditing system where we can really figure out how the extra dollars are coming in instead of the guesswork we've got right now.
Yeah, so we're exhausting all of the lots that we've got where development tax was collected at the front. So a lot of those lots we're permitting are only $750 in development tax. The other ones that we're permitting that the school facilities tax applies to aren't really starting to roll in yet. I don't think we're going to see them. Doug will be able to give you a better idea of what plats have come through his office in the last 6 weeks, last 2 months. But we really haven't seen those where it applies to building permits and stuff yet.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Bill, you look like you're in deep thought. Okay. I'll let it stew for a minute. Craig? Okay. Tanya, I believe then you are complete.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. Doug, if you and Michael would like to take your shot.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. The discussion you all are just having actually dovetails pretty well into the first report I'll make, and that has to do with the available lot inventory. We have several files in our folder tonight, more so than you would usually see, but we'll get through all of them. But the first one we'll look at is the available lot inventory through the end of August of this year. You'll notice on page 5, total available lots this month is 713. Again, those are actually recorded lots on the ground. That's down just a little bit from last month. Last month it was actually about 731. It's actually been going down over the last 3 to 4 months. Since about May, June, we've seen it kind of trending down. To kind of further the discussion regarding what Tanya was saying as far as the plats and everything, since July, we really hadn't had a lot of the larger final plats recorded. There was one last month. I think it was Davenport Station, one of the sections of Davenport. There are 2 in my office right now waiting my signature, which should be signed within the next few days. There were a couple things we were waiting on, but the engineering and the development, not the design engineering team and the developer are going through that. So we'll see next month. We're going to see probably this number go up a little bit unless there's just a rush on permits. But it's been a little slow on the department as far as actual recorded plats as far as the county is concerned. Now, since we don't see the final plats coming in anymore for development tax stickers from the cities, it's really difficult to say what they're doing. So from our standpoint, at least, it has slowed down just a little bit. But as you can see, the available lot inventory keeps going down, so it's only a matter of time before we start seeing more sections come in. And then as those are permitted, we'll start seeing those schools facilities tax numbers increase. Any more questions on that by any chance? If there's not, I will go ahead and jump into our rezoning report. We have 3 rezoning applications for your consideration next month. First is for property located at 3624 Las Casas Pike. This one's a little unusual. We don't see these type situations very often. This is a situation where, excuse me just a second, I'm going to delete some of my tabs up here so I don't get lost. There was a piece of property on Las Casas Pike that we're talking about. It was zoned R15 back in 2007, but came before the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners at that time to be zoned to, well, it had a conditional use permit for a chiropractic office. When we did the rezoning, comprehensive rezoning in 2013, we actually zoned the property office professional because it was being used as a chiropractic office, wasn't being used as a home. Since that time, the owner of the property has sold it, and the subsequent owners, actually 2 owners ago, I suppose, the subsequent owners would like to use it just as a single-family home. However, you can't use single-family, you can't have single-family uses in the office professional zone. They have no intention of using it as a chiropractic office, so they are just asking for it to be rezoned back to what would be, at the time, R15. It's now RM, residential medium density. So this particular application, there's no development. They just want to use the house as a house, the way that it was. So that was not very controversial at all. There was very little discussion, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval of it by a unanimous vote. The second rezoning request that we have is for property located along Old Nashville Highway. This is one that you probably do recognize. This has been before the County Commission, at least this particular property in general, has been before the County Commission a number of times over the last year or two for various reasons. Just as a way of history, let me just see here. We've looked, again, at this over the last year or so. Originally, back in 2019, they were looking to zone a portion of the property commercial neighborhood, with the remainder being zoned light industrial. The Planning Commission recommended commercial general instead and left the commercial neighborhood portion unchanged, and that was what was ultimately approved by the Board of Commissioners. There was a subsequent rezoning back in April of this year for property on the opposite side, a portion of the property on the opposite side from where this one is. The applicant's looking to rezone this about 11 acres to a planned unit development to construct an indoor-outdoor soccer complex. They made a similar request to the Board of Zoning Appeals back in February of this year. However, that was denied, so they're trying to go the rezoning route, trying to put in a little more specifics into the application, hoping to get it through. This is all in the pattern book, and a copy of the pattern book is on your iPads for your information. The soccer club currently operates out of a structure at Oakland High School. The proposed hours of operation at this new facility, should it be approved, would be from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekdays and 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekends. They're looking to put about a 40,000 square foot building, 45,000 actually, when it's all said and done. That would include small office space, restrooms, and an indoor field. There's also 2 outdoor fields on the concept plan. You'll see there's one in front of the complex, then you have the indoor complex, then a field behind it. They say that any amplified sound, which there probably won't be much of any, would cease by about 9 p.m. I won't just read the entire staff report, but I will go into the discussion that we had at the Planning Commission. One of the concerns, the first time this came before the Planning Commission, it was actually deferred because there was several unanswered questions, one of them being turn lanes along Old Nashville Highway. They were proposing a right turn lane only in their revised pattern book, which is what is on your iPads today. The applicant discussed also coordinating with the adjacent Buddhist temple for events at the soccer facility. There was also some questions about the availability of water supply and pressure on the property as far as hydrant availability versus sprinklers and how that would work. There was quite a bit of discussion at the Planning Commission. Quite frankly, there were still quite a few loose ends at the Planning Commission, which I believe is why the Planning Commission actually recommended denial of the application due to those outstanding issues. I have had some further conversations with the applicant that indicate they do plan to take this application to the full Board of Commissioners despite their denial recommendation. They have indicated they are willing to commit to a full turn lane as opposed to right turn lane only, removing the lights on the back field, possibly, and are also, I believe, Commissioner Sereno, I talked to you a little earlier, you said that they did meet with the Buddhist monks to see what other concerns that they may have. I've been asking for a revised pattern book from the applicant's design team. We're still waiting for that, but we should have that prior to the Board of Commissioner meeting next week. So still a few loose ends on this one, but it's a little unusual. We usually don't see applications that have a recommendation for denial moving forward, but they would like to move this forward. I'll pause for any questions on this.
I didn't see I'm not seeing a rendering as far as the parking goes. Any soccer complex that, in this county it just seems to overflow with traffic and people. So how many vehicles could this?
In the pattern book, I believe it was about, sorry, let me just flip open here. I want to say they were proposing about 90-ish or so paved parking spots, and then they had an overflow area. Let's see, yes. If you look on the pattern book, it's on, looks like it's the PDF version, page 11. It'd be page 9 in the lower right corner. They are showing 92 dust-free spaces and then showing a grass overflow area of 52 is what they're showing for parking.
Across from a pretty good size.
There is a subdivision across the street, yes, sir. Which was one of the reasons we had some concerns about the turn lanes in there. But they have committed to do a full turn lane based on their last comments to us.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
You had, and you may have mentioned this, so we rezoned the tract next to LoJack. Is it next to this one or one?
No, this is actually part of the overall.
Is it the left-hand part of that?
It's the very left-hand
northern part of
portion.
that?
Right, I guess that'd be the northwest. A portion of the property they actually sold to the Buddhist temple, and then it's the lot, be that portion right next to that.
And
So
then
it's
the
part of
other
that
part
overall
had,
property.
they were seeking some mini storage, or
They did.
their zoning would allow mini storage, but they haven't
Right.
submitted.
Right, they were looking to do, at the very right-hand side, like the southeastern part of the property, we actually saw a site plan. It was going to be for kind of combination business warehouse, kind of like they have on Thompson Lane. You might recall that was one back in April. We actually did see a site plan for that just a few months ago at the Planning Commission that was approved. I've had some further conversations with the applicant that that project's not going to go forward. So at this point, we don't know what it's going to be.
Is to your knowledge, does the turn lane components encompass any of the property to the right or to the south? That
At this point, I'm not aware. They haven't submitted any kind of renderings to us or anything. It would all have, they're not talking about purchasing any right-of-way. Everything would have to be on their side of the road. So it ultimately may end up being a portion of that, but we haven't seen any renderings yet. Any other questions on that one? Like I said, I know that one's a little unusual. If not, I'll move on to the third application.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Like Mr. DeMosi said, I helped the Buddhist temple and the gentleman from the real estate person to communicate in the language they understand. So they exchange the program with the temple, the worship and so on and so forth. The two of them try to work out with the program so the traffic wouldn't be jammed. And that is the reason. I told them, the commissioner for the district would be Commissioner Key, so they understand that.
Yeah. Thank you, Chantel.
Okay, there's no other questions on this. The last rezoning we'll have for your consideration is for property located along Lebanon Pike, 4781. It's zoned RM currently. They're looking to do a planned development for a residential subdivision. It's about 57 acres in size. This property was also the subject of a couple of public hearings before the Planning Commission earlier this year. They were originally proposing to construct 180 townhomes on the property. This went through a couple different meetings with the Planning Commission. Ultimately, it was recommended for a denial. They did not pursue that to the full commission, so you never did see it come before this particular body. They have since reevaluated their proposal and now are planning to construct 137 single-family detached units on the property. There's a breakdown in our staff comments as far as the number of units, the minimum lot size, width, garage parking, et cetera. All units will be constructed of vinyl, hardy board, or stone water table materials. There are architectural renderings and floor plans in the pattern book, again, which is on your iPads tonight. There was a neighborhood meeting as per our ordinance. This actually has been the subject of 2 or 3 different neighborhood meetings, and there's only been maybe 1 or 2 people that have shown up for any of these meetings, and no one's really had any real issues with this. The biggest issues we had with this particular application, especially on the townhome development, had to do with access, especially with access along 231 Lebanon Pike. They are proposing turn lanes. Their traffic study did recommend turn lanes. There are, as Mike would put it, they are literally between a rock and a hard place in here because it narrows down where the river comes in on the east side of Lebanon Pike, and due to other topography issues. Did I say Lebanon? I'm sorry?
I'm showing 96. You're talking 231?
Yes, sir.
Evidently, I've got the wrong page or something up here. Developer?
This is NVR, Mr. P. It'd be the last staff report. It'd be page, let's see, starts on page 27 of the PDF for the staff report. But again, the turn lanes were one of the biggest issues, and just access to the property and whether or not there was room to put the turn lanes in. They have submitted some schematics to staff showing that despite the narrowness of what they have there, that looks like they can get adequate sight distance and get the turn lanes in as far as that goes. Also, kind of playing into this, there are two properties directly to the north that we've been in conversations with different development teams, and both of those properties would tie into this property. So there's going to be a lot of interconnectivity. That's also going to allow for access directly out to Central Valley Road, and then some potential traffic improvements like a traffic signal and some maybe lane improvements up there at the intersection of Lebanon Pike and Central Valley Road. So we've evaluated one plan development application for the property right on the intersection. That's not ready to come before the Planning Commission yet, but it's all kind of tied in together. So just be aware of that also played into all this. The Planning Commission did have questions about the timing of those northern tracks as far as developing those, that I was talking about. The ability to access the lots in the back of the development should an accident occur. The development plan that they're proposing actually does have a stub out to the west, which would tie into a subdivision that's being constructed in the city of Murfreesboro. So there's going to be quite a bit of interconnectivity with this particular development whenever these particular access points occur. After discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this by a unanimous vote. So there wasn't anybody really that I remember spoke necessarily against it, but we've had a lot of discussion on this property over the
Chairman.
last several months.
Yes, sir.
Is this the Clifford Vinson farm that you're talking about?
It's Irvin property is actually what it is. I'm not sure if that's the same thing or not. But
Is it at the corner of 231 and...
The other development it might tie into is, but this particular application that would be considering at the county commission is the Irvin Farm, which is right to the south of that.
So this property, it doesn't come to Central Valley Road?
This one does not, no. Yeah, this one with the tie-ins and everything eventually will, but by itself, it'll just have 231 access and then an access to the west to that city development.
Bill?
And how do we, remind me, how are we going to vote on these? Is it just to approve your report, and all three would go with the recommendation for or against? Because the reason I ask is that Mr. Lopez's soccer complex is, it's a little unusual.
Right.
I hate to send something forward that
unusual,
was 9-1 deny.
Yeah, it'll move. I mean, of course, they have a right to bring it all the way through. I mean, you're just, at this point, just recommending the report. Now, the state law does say if it comes with a recommendation for denial, then it has to have, it has to have a majority of the entire county commission. So it's going to have 11 votes to be approved, which is basically any application that comes through. So in that regard, it's not going to be really any different. It's just going to have at least 11 votes to pass the county commission with a negative recommendation from the planning commission.
I make a motion to approve your report.
Motion to approve. We need a motion for a second.
Second.
We have a second. All those Robert, question?
I've got some more questions before
Sure.
he gets away. I don't mind going ahead and voting, but
All those in favor signify aye.
aye.
Any opposed? All right, Robert?
Doug, it's my understanding that y'all are going through upgrading some of your regulations. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, we're looking at something, right? We're looking at some regulations for cargo containers and outdoor major equipment. Do you have something specific you might be thinking about?
Yeah, I've got about 3 or 4 specific things.
Okay.
And part of it is some of the stuff I've been hearing tonight. For instance, this soccer field, you got lights, you got a lot of sound. I don't know how close you are to the neighborhoods there, But one thing that concerns me is the noise. And I've been getting a lot of complaints on noise. Now, we do have a noise ordinance in this county,
Right.
but it's only for subdivisions and major subdivisions, the way I read it. I would ask that y'all revisit that so that we can help people that are having problems with noise problems. That's one thing I'd like for y'all to address in planning. You know, I'd be happy to come if y'all want me to come and elaborate to your group. Second is Airbnbs.
Yes.
And, you know, I've got a lot going on in my neighborhood, and I'm sure a lot of other people do, whether you know it or not, you do. And we need to nail down some regulations on this so that people know what they can do, what they can't do, and that way I don't get complaints on the back end. You know, these guys know what they can do and what they can't do. Now, third thing, like I said, I'm going down the line here. Turn lanes on, you know, whether it's a commercial or a new development. But I've seen the way we're growing, and my end of the county is probably going to develop or is developing slower than the rest of the county has, but guess what? It's finally hit over in my area. And a lot of the roads are narrow, and I'd like for y'all to look a little bit harder at turn lanes and access and not think about exactly throwing up a traffic study for what's going on right now, but I think we need to be looking ahead to see what's going to happen in the next 10 years, because with the way the growth is going there, you know, to me, if we've got a subdivision going out in these rural areas, we need to be looking at turn lanes for them. So those are the three main things I'd like to ask y'all to look at.
So the Airbnb, the turn lanes, and the noise was the other one, correct?
Right,
Yes,
not
sir.
necessarily in that order.
Yes, sir.
but To me, they're all important.
Yeah, and I'll at least address the one with the Airbnbs. That's something that I know my assistant director and I, Danielle, have talked about, and Tanya and I have talked about as well, trying to get a handle. We get more and more phone calls about these things as the days go on. So, yeah, we'll definitely be looking into that.
Well, too, next time you come, if you would, bring with you the state ordinances on Airbnbs and what's allowed, what's not.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'd be happy to. All right, we've got, there's no other questions. We've got several other things to discuss with you today. Mr. Chairman, I'll kind of defer to you. Do you want to leave the department fees discussion till the very end and go through some of the FEMA buyout and the signal maintenance contracts first?
Well, let's just go to the top of the list, which in our case would be the signal maintenance.
Okay. I'll let Mike handle that.
Douglas, Chairman, Commissioners. On your iPad, you'll find a signal maintenance agreement for a brand-new traffic signal at Shelbyville Pike and Rucker Road. Shelbyville Pike is State Route 10, US 231, and it's for a development south of Murfreesboro called Davenport Station. And the city of Murfreesboro maintains at least 3 other of our traffic signals. And also on your iPad, you'll see the most recent maintenance agreement reimbursement request from the city. There's one for a traffic signal at Jefferson Pike and Lebanon Pike where something tall hit a signal and had to be replaced. One at Compton and Las Casas, they didn't do any maintenance, so they didn't charge us. And then one at Old Nashville Highway in Florence. And fortunately, the mayor was able to get that charge removed, so that is no longer anything that we have to worry about. But typically what the city does is they'll send S&W Electrical. They're a contractor that takes care of traffic signals for the city, but they'll send a crew up there to do maintenance on the signals if any are needed, and they usually just pass that bill on to us. But this signal maintenance agreement is for a new traffic signal that the city will be maintaining. And interesting to note that this one has a repeater tower at the convenience center just down the street on 231, so the city can manipulate and coordinate the traffic signal from City Hall instead of sending a tech out to work on it. So, so we're just asking for y'all to approve the traffic signal maintenance for this new traffic light.
Has our attorney looked at this?
Yes, he has reviewed it and approved it. He worked with the Assistant City Attorney David Ives. Our attorney Nick Christensen worked with that, and this is the final copy.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, it needs to be noted that in this new agreement that you'll see on, what page is that on, Mike? They want to start charging fees for their hours?
Well, they have this in the past. If you look at the old agreements that we have already in place, they have the ability for their staff, if their staff has to go out and work on a cabinet or a signal or something like that, they have the ability to charge us. What they typically do is just pass on the contractor's bill to us. So hanging the new traffic signal, replacing that physical, the light itself, the city didn't go out and do any work on it. It was their contractor, and that's what they typically do. In the 6 years that I've been here, I don't think I've received a bill from the city covering their charges. So, but they just wanted in the contract to be able to cover that charge. If they had to send somebody out and work on a traffic signal for a couple hours or something, they can cover their costs.
That's new, Mr. I know it's always been there, but they've never done it. It's just kind of a new fee. I just wanted the committee to be aware that they're going to start charging for those hours or minutes or whatever it may be. You see on the first one, it's broken down by each person, how much they would charge, right?
Yes, that's Jim Kerr is the transportation director, Ram Balachandra is the traffic engineer, Matthew Fazig is another traffic engineer, and these are other staff members. So,
and of course, Mike we don't have the capability in his office.
right.
They do charge us?
Right. Well, yes, were those the contractor invoices or were those actual staff?
We came from the city, but not for their specific time. It was from S&W, right? Yeah, but now it's going to be S&W plus whatever time staff allocates.
Right. But they said they typically don't charge us, but they have the ability to charge us if
Now they're
they
going
need
to start charging us.
Right.
I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing that they historically have had the hours
Yes.
and the capacity to charge.
Yes.
And they have thus far in your 6 years chosen not to pass on their internal cost. You've been told by somebody at the city they will now start charging their internal cost?
Well, we received a letter from them stating that they would start implementing these, and that's why you'll see the charges in there, that what they're going to start charging us. So I just, out of transparency, it's not, we don't have the department, you don't have the department to do that and handle it. We don't mind paying it. We understand that, but just want you to be aware.
And the contract we approved previously, we approved invoices. The invoices you copied here as an example.
Yes, sir.
We'd approved previously.
Yes.
And that contract likewise had the hourly rates.
Yes, sir.
For Mr. Kerr and the rest of the folks.
Yes, sir.
So nothing's changed in regard to the contract from the one we approved last month. We're just reiterating that they can charge this and they just might do so.
Yes, sir. Right. So Lisa,
I think would be
we might have to up
in general.
our traffic signal maintenance budget a little bit more next year. This is a brand new light. I don't expect any maintenance needed on it for several years.
My quick question, I don't notice on the signals, the one on the racetrack,
Yes,
Is
sir.
it separate?
That is way outside of the city. The city will maintain anything inside their urban growth boundary. So that, the Nashville Superspeedway light at Bill France and 840 is outside of that boundary, so they won't maintain that one. We just got the town of Smyrna to do the same kind of contract maintenance agreement with the new signals at Jefferson Pike in 840, and the mayor's been talking to the city manager, town manager, about possibly them doing that light as well for us.
Well, for the maintenance that it cost us on the light over there off of, 840, and I forget whatever the street is, by the racetrack.
Bill France, yes, sir.
Have we compared the price on us doing it ourselves?
We would have to hire a staff of people to do that, to go out and physically do the timing and the maintenance of that.
I mean, somebody like S&W?
Well, we could do that, but there's more involved than just changing the components. There's the phasing of the light, so we would probably have to get a consultant involved too to do the proper phasing, the timing of each signal involved.
Okay, I'm just making sure we're covering our bases here.
Yes, sir. Right. But this, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
If I interrupted somebody, please stop me. I think this is a really great deal on
Yes.
a per light cost. They've developed quite a bit of expertise in their staff, and S&W has just become the go-to. So I make a motion to approve the contract for the stoplight. At what intersection? At Davenport Station?
Yes, it's at Rucker Road and Chevrolet Pike.
I approve that traffic light.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions before we go to vote? All those in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I'm sorry? Oh, roll call, yes, certainly. Rachel? Thank you. Robert?
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Dodd,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, Michael?
Thank you. Next, do you want to go over the FEMA buyouts?
Sure.
Okay. Also, on your iPads, you'll find a couple letters. One is from FEMA, where we have been awarded the buyout grants for 4 houses, one at 3221 Shadowbrook Drive, one at 5840 Washington Boulevard, one at 5943 Adams Drive, and one at 650 Baker Road. And the federal government, FEMA, will pick up 75%. The state will pick up 12.5%, and we will pick up 12.5%. And if you look on the TEMA letter, it breaks down the amounts that each one will cover. And what we're asking for is the authority for the mayor to sign a contract when it is received. We haven't gotten the official final contract. We've gotten notification from FEMA and TEMA that we've been awarded these grants. We applied for these grants back in 2019. It's been a long, arduous process, but they've finally been approved. The county, when we asked to apply for these grants, the county was obligated for their portion of the funds. So we want to have the ability to, with the authority for the mayor to sign the contract, this will also give us the ability to contact homeowners and say, hey, we've received the grant and the contracts are coming. Are you still interested? You know, they don't have to follow through with the application if they've changed their mind or anything like that. But we have the ability to buy these 4 houses and demolish them. I've included 4 images on your iPads. Some of the houses, you'll see water standing on them. The one on Shadowbrook Drive, the crawl space floods quite often in heavy rain events. You can see the water around the house itself. The house at 5840 Washington Boulevard looks like a castle with a moat surrounding it, and it's received a lot of damage. It's essentially sitting in a bowl. This is an older subdivision, I believe, from the 60s or 70s. Likewise, Adams Drive, a lot of damage, a lot of mold damage, water up under the crawl space. So what we try to do now is we're very diligent about looking at elevating the yard itself, not just the floor like they did in the past. So we would, ask that y'all give the mayor authority to sign a contract when it does come in.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, correct.
on 5943 Adams Drive, why are the other two not?
They were contacted and they were not interested. So I'm shaking my head, scratching my head is the same. Yes, sir.
But the one in blue is interested?
Yes, sir. They have, I didn't include it. I had several other images. One was the May 2010 flood. It was completely surrounded, water up under the house, and I think actually maybe into the floors itself. So it's received a repetitive damage. We contacted the adjacent owners, and they essentially said, no, we're good with the condition we're living under.
So we gave them the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
They turned it down. This is not something that reoccurs every year.
No, sir. No, sir.
So they're done?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Wayne.
Mr. Hughes, of these four, what is the youngest house?
The youngest house is 650 Baker Road.
When was it built?
I don't have that in front of me, but it was, the subdivision itself is from the 50s. It was a surplus lot. I think it was 2013, 2014, or something like that. And it, unfortunately, you can see on the image, the backyard is where the septic system is located, and when they have a heavy rain, water stands on that septic system for long periods of time, and they can't flush, they can't shower, wash clothes or dishes. So water has been up to the house. I don't know if it's been in the house, but this house was built in this bowl. So,
We've approved some lots there on the Old Nashville Highway where several of the neighbors have complained of standing water.
Yes, sir.
That Burleson Lane area. I guess we're just dependent upon your due diligence
Yes.
to make sure that we don't have this anymore on
Yes, sir.
these
Right.
on these new ones.
and then you'll see later on when we talk about fees, we are requiring, any time we see a older lot, older subdivision, or a tract, we have our engineers look at the where they're positioning the house. Is it going to have issues for the homeowners? Is it in the FEMA flood zone? Is it in a local flood zone? So if we feel, if they brought this 650 Baker to us today, we would say that is a bowl itself. We re-review old subdivisions, every application, additions, pools, fences, anything. We look at anything now. So that's why I'm getting a little grayer than I was when I started. So, but we would require a critical lot grading plan for this. Can you build a house on there? Can the residents be safe here? I don't like FEMA buyouts at all. I don't want to apply for another one if I can help it. But some of these houses from these older subdivisions, it's just year after year, heavy rain after heavy rain. The method at the time, it was thought if you just elevate the floor, the house is okay. You know, living space is okay above. And that's a lot of these older subdivisions, that's all they would do is elevate the floor in a low-lying lot. So we are diligent about making sure that the lots are elevated, water drains away from the houses, it doesn't impact the other neighbors. So that's several things that we look at. But if I had my druthers, I'd never apply for another FEMA grant if I could, if I can catch it on the front end.
So let's just say you have a subdivision and you have a farm or hobby farm that's adjacent to it that has a fence row. And that fence row is in the normal drainage pattern of that subdivision.
Yes, sir.
When you have these heavy rains, of course, I hope you never have anything like Waverly, but what we had in May of 2010, when there's debris that stacks up against some of these fence rows and the water backs up, in that instance, is there anything that can be done at all, or just that
For
fence row?
existing subdivisions?
Well, yeah.
We have an excellent public works department that can get outside of the public rights-of-way, and they have men and equipment that can do certain projects. We have to get a public works easement to get outside of the right-of-way and do the work, but we have the ability through the highway department's public works department to do that work. But on the engineering side, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we don't have a situation like that. Nobody can predict the Waverly, that much rain in such a short amount of time. But I'm a big proponent of Murphy's Law. So if something bad will happen wrong, we plan for it. Where does the water go if it can't go where it needs to go? We don't want it going into the houses. We don't want it going into the roads if we can help it. So, yes, sir.
One more first, Chairman, Vice Chair.
If we vote to do this, does the county become owners of the property?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then whose responsibility is it to maintain that property? I've got one biting me like this right here,
Yes,
right
sir.
now.
I'm aware of that one. Yes, sir.
And evidently, we're not doing a good job.
Yes, sir. I've passed that along. It's the highway department mows some of them, I believe. I think Ben Mankin's crew mows some, but I think it's mostly the highway department. They put it on their bush hogging cycle, and it gets mowed 2 times a year, maybe 3 times a year.
Do we have multiples of these properties, or just a small amount?
We have quite a few, I think. There's some off of
There's
Twin
3
Oaks,
at the location we're
some
talking
off of Twin Oaks, some off of Jefferson Pike. There's some scattered all around that we have purchased. We can't do anything with them. It can become a park, it can become green space, it can become stormwater management, but you can never build on it again. Once the federal government helps us buy these and we demolish these, you cannot build anything on them again.
Would it be possible to put these on a timed schedule to maybe clean them in the spring, clean them in the fall?
Yes, sir. I will.
These people will know when it's going to be mowed, and they won't be calling the commissioners and then calling the mayor and emailing us, and just put it on a schedule and let somebody do it if we're going to buy it.
I will touch base with the highway department and make sure their bush hogging crew doesn't forget about those. Yes, sir.
They won't, because they'll call back.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Make sure your mic's on, Robert.
Were any of these subject to BZA changes? Or would they be?
What? I'm sorry.
Any of these that we're looking at buying out, were there any changes other than your office looking at these for approval? I know sometimes, people will get small changes through the BZA to build in certain places, and I'm just asking any
the
of
BZA,
these.
Board of Zoning Appeals?
Right.
I don't think so. So, no, I think once we purchase these, demolish them,
No, I'm talking about before they were constructed or during construction, you know, if there's an outhouse or an outbuilding or
thing that's been,
property setback, anything like that.
No.
Can these be affected by that?
by BZA. I mean, Doug's the expert on the BZAs. I don't. Right, right. So, like I said, we can use it for a park, a green space. We can cut it for hay. We can make it a stormwater management area. There's one in Deerfield Subdivision that is a stormwater management area. It's a low area. I think they excavated out a little bit extra to help with the flooding in the area. So, but like I said, I don't like FEMA buyouts, but there's some that go way back, and if I had my druthers, I'd like to catch them all when we review them on the front end.
Whose budget is coming out of?
The general fund.
General fund?
Yes,
Do you
sir.
have a number, like a set amount for the year?
Yes, for these four, our portion would be $142,363.75. However, our highway department, when they demolish the structures, counts as part of that 12.5%, that $142,000. So
You're getting 4 houses for $1 million?
yes, sir.
So that's 4.
Four
And that
houses.
also includes, so that amount will cover the demolition that we do on this?
Yes,
lot.
yes. And the mold abatement or the evaluation, the paint, asbestos evaluations and whatnot, the appraisals, things like that. So
So do we have a cap on what you can do a year?
whatever y'all allow.
It's kind of open-ended?
Yes, and like I said, this was applied for in 2019. So
They don't do this every year.
No, this one goes way back. If there's a way for the highway department to solve the drainage problem, if we could drain all these bowls that these houses are sitting in, we don't need to buy them out. We can help these people out. But some of these bowls you just can't drain. There's just no way to drain them out. And they've suffered year after year.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if someone has a perpetual problem with standing water getting in their crawl space, and it happens time after time, how do they apply to be a part of this program?
They contact the EMA department, and the grants are actually through our emergency management office, and they make the official application to FEMA for these buyouts. But we help them out as the engineering department as best we can. But they keep track of damages. We also help with drainage complaints. The highway department, the public works engineer works on drainage complaints. We all pitch in when we can.
One thing I heard you say is these happened a long time ago, and I'll grant you, Baker Road, you said was a 50s subdivision.
Yes,
However,
Homewood
you
subdivision.
said that structure was built in 2014.
It was one of the lots that sat empty since the 50s. Somebody bought it, built a house on it, and it found out it's in a bowl and it floods. So,
Well, my point is, I don't want to keep seeing these.
no, neither do I. Yes, sir.
And, I don't know whose job it is to make sure those elevations are out there, but we've got GPS all over
yes,
this
sir.
county. They'll tell you what those elevations are. So anytime you got a application come in, I assume y'all are looking at that.
Absolutely, yes, sir. That's what I said earlier. Any addition, new house, accessory structure, anything like that, the county engineers look at it, me or my assistant. And so
Where's the nearest benchmark to that Baker Road area? I know we've got them all over the county.
There, I would have to look a little diligently on that, but we have great GIS information, topographic information. We have 1-foot contour elevations.
I mean, if you're asking me to pay for this, I want to know that you've already looked at that GPS information and that benchmark and make sure that it's correct.
We
I'd like to
use-
have a report on that next time on these 4 specific ones, what the GPS benchmark is for those areas and what the actual elevation for those areas are.
We are on state plane coordinate system. So we use state LIDAR. If the state flies a topographic aerial survey. So are you looking for an actual benchmark?
If I'm not mistaken, didn't Weiser Company put benchmarks throughout this county?
They have, and we have information on that. So we have.
I want to know if those benchmarks are correct for these 4 specific areas. I'm not saying I'm voting against this, I'm not, but I want to make sure our information and what you're working off of is correct.
Yes, sir. They're tied to the state plane coordinate system, so they're all tied together. The benchmarks that the city set, that the county set, are all tied together. They're the same datum. Yes, sir.
Well, good. I'm just asking for you to check and make sure somebody didn't screw up.
Yes, sir. Like I said, any application that comes in, we review it for anything, and I hope this is the last one. I know it won't be, but I hope this is the last FEMA bout that we ever see. But
I know where some are right now. So
oh, yes, sir.
They are not.
Right.
Going to be the last ones. And one of the problems that you run into, since we're bringing this up, is when you go out and you pave. When you pave in a subdivision that's existing and you don't tear out the old pavement and you raise the elevation 3 inches.
Oh, absolutely.
Guess what?
Yes, sir.
Talking about a moat around that one building, well, you're creating moats when you do that. So one thing I'd like for you to do is coordinate with our paving and make sure we're not adding problems to some of these older subdivisions when we're adding pavement without tearing out the height of, we're basically making a dike. And I can take you out and show you if you want to see it.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware of some. The highway department is very good about that. They're aware of those issues as well. So a lot of times, instead of just overlaying another layer of asphalt over another layer after year, they'll mill off the older layer and then put down a new layer. So it's essentially the same elevation. It doesn't change anything. So, but yes, sir, we will do that.
All right. You've heard the issue. We have 4 properties for FEMA buyout with a little bit of county participation. No more discussion. We need a motion for approval or denial.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We need a second.
Second.
And we have a second. Roll call, Rachel.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
One more item.
Okay, sure.
Yes, this is a continuation of the discussion we had last month regarding our fees. I'll call your attention to 3 different files under the Public Works and Planning information. One of them is the one that says Fee Schedule, Table 2021 PW Committee. The second is example fees with the date 9/7/21, today's date. And then the third is the Rutherford County Plans Review and Land Disturbance Permit Worksheet. That should be the last one on your iPads there. Just as a way of kind of review from last month, we were talking about what our current fees are and our proposed fees. We talked about what our preliminary plan fees, final plats, site plans, et cetera, were currently, and then what we proposed them to be. We also talked a little bit about the other fees that were under consideration, such as construction plan review fee and looking at our land disturbance fees as well. I'm going to let Mike talk more about that. That'll be that last file that I brought to your attention. He's going to kind of go through that in a little more detail. I will say that one of the items that you did ask for last month and we did provide for you were some examples of the impact of proposed fee changes on hypothetical projects. We took 4 different types of projects, basically 2 subdivisions and what would be 2 site plans to kind of give you an idea of what the difference is between the current and the proposed fees. But before getting into that, I'll turn it over to Mike to talk about the project fee worksheet that we've come up with. So, Mike.
So the project fee computation worksheet is essentially a way for the engineering department to charge for the review of construction plans, site plans, and things like that. So currently, we only charge for preliminary plans and final plats or site plans. So we, in the past, have never charged for construction plans to review, and that is the meat and potatoes, the nuts and bolts, the heavy detail of, is this subdivision going to work? Is it going to drain? There's, hours and hours and hours are spent on review of these plans to make sure that they will work, they will drain properly, they won't impact the adjacent neighbors. So what we'd like to do is lower the preliminary plan fees, but also, and then instill a construction plan fee. So the project fee computation worksheet that Doug was talking about is modeled off of Nashville, how they do it. So it's based on the size of the project. Is it a residential? Is it not? Is it multifamily or commercial or anything like that? There's a sliding scale. So the larger the project, the more work is involved, the more time is involved, and it's reflected in the cost. So this is a way to recoup our costs of, making sure that the subdivisions follow the strict guidelines that we have approved in the past, our subdivision regulations, good engineering judgment, and Murphy's Law. So, I mean, it's the full gambit of that. So what we've always charged a land disturbance fee. This example comparing the current to proposed has a grading permit fee. It's essentially the same thing as our land disturbance fee. And it's, we've always charged that. So that's the area that the development will move dirt on. If they're going to preserve, green fields for the step system, reserve areas, future developments, stream buffers, anything that they're not going to touch, we don't charge them land disturbance fees for that. But it will be charged in the plan review fee because it's part of the entire development.
And you'll see that we used 2 different size subdivisions. We had one that was about 36 acres and we tried one that was about 272. And you notice the difference in our current versus proposed fees for the smaller subdivision wasn't a whole lot, but the larger the subdivision, of course, that makes sense when you think about it. The larger the subdivision, the more detailed plans that we're going to have to look at, the more plans, quite frankly, that we're going to have to look at. As the size goes up, so does the difference. So there's an element of fairness built into it as well.
So are these fees, I agree they should be this. So I'm for this. But my question is this something that we're going to have to address every year? Or is this something that...
It'll probably be set, and then as the years go by, we'll adjust as needed.
It's not a reoccurring thing? You're going to come in here every year?
No, sir.
No, sir, no, sir, we wouldn't. Now, we try to keep up with what's going on with the fees. I've got a list that I keep up with as far as the rezoning and everything that I keep up with. It's updated as of 2020. When we think changes are needed, we can bring them back, but this should be good for a little while.
So the worksheet that you included,
Yes, sir.
did that Rutherford County Engineering Plans Review sheet, did you utilize that to create the example sheet?
Yes.
So
Yes,
this is your proposed new,
Yes, sir.
The final plat fees that you see for both those first two we didn't mess with, or I shouldn't say that, we didn't change the major final plat fees. So
on the example?
that stayed the same.
On the example?
On these examples,
Okay.
right. Yeah, what did change is the preliminary plan between the two, because you'll see that preliminary plan was a lot more in the
Added
current than
that.
it is in the proposed, but that's because we put that one down
Yeah.
and made it up with the construction plan and grading fee.
Okay, this makes a lot of sense. I know 6,900 looks like a large increase, and that 6,900 would go to your department directly.
Right.
And I can say the 6,900 looks large, but if it's by the acre or by the lot, $18 a lot, I forget what it was per acre, but just sounded reasonable to the business that's applying, but a boon for your budget.
Yes, sir. And that particular project you're talking about is 272 acres and with 383 lots. So
Right.
it's quite a large development.
Yeah.
A lot of work has to go into that.
And you're proposing this number, this methodology, and these numbers you're presenting to us to approve or deny?
Yes,
This
sir.
is your,
Yes, sir.
This is the culmination of the efforts you've been putting up for a while?
Yes, sir, that's correct, sir.
I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a second. I have a question or two before we go to vote. These extra, let me start with question one. Does the state put a cap on what you guys can charge for fees?
Not for this.
Okay.
Not for fees.
Okay. Do these increase in fees go directly to your budget, or do these go to a general fund, or where do these go?
Well, they go into our budget, which I guess is a creature of the general funds.
Okay. Okay. Yes, in the color-coded example of the 36-plus acres, 89 lots, that's relatively a flat increase. I mean, you've raised some, you've lowered some. Basically, at the end of the day, it's almost a wash. Why would you not increase that at least 10%?
Well, we tried to just step it in for the smaller developments, the smaller sections, so it wouldn't be that big of an increase, but
I mean, 36 acres, 89 lots is the example. I'm talking about the very first one on his list. I mean, it takes as long for your group to go through those set of plans as it does.
Right. Well, and, like Mike was saying, we're trying to do it in a way where, I mean, when you look at these, the larger the development, the more the difference is going to be.
Yeah.
If you made more of a difference on the smaller end, what's that going to look like on the larger end is going to be a really big increase. So, we're trying to keep it reasonable at the same time. But we played with several different,
I guess my
figures,
comment is everything. When was the last time these fees were increased?
I believe 07, if I remember right. It's been quite a while.
A long time.
Yes, sir.
What in the world has not gone up since 2007, except my pay, probably? But everything has gone up, right? Everybody expects to pay a little more than they did in 2007. And what would you say, percentage-wise, in your example number one of the 36 acres, 89 lots, is that about, what, 10% of what you see? Is that 40% of what you see on a monthly basis? Where does that particular example fall into the meat of what you see in a year? Is that a fair amount of what you see from month to month?
It is, yeah.
We don't see many huge subdivisions like the Burgess,
Right.
but there are some.
Yeah.
Well,
We see a lot, in the 1 to 200 range. We'll see, that's probably more the standard of what we see. This is probably getting a little toward the smaller end, but this was a continuation. What we didn't name these, to protect the innocent and the guilty and all that, but this was actually based off of an extension of an existing development is where we got that.
Okay. I'm just saying, now's your chance to ask for more. I would think that you wouldn't want to reduce that preliminary number from 94 down to 49 and basically have that first example as a wash.
Well, what
But
we
that's
did,
just me.
What we did on the preliminary, when you look at the fee schedule, the current fee is $500 base fee and $100 per lot. We took that down to $50 per lot. We could make that $75 per lot if you wanted to.
You guys do what you want. I'm just saying, now, if you're asking, now's the time to ask. I hate to see you walk away with nothing in that first segment there and load up on the three bigger ones when there may be more of the smaller ones than there are bigger ones in the scope of things.
Right.
But you do what you want.
Mayor, I do. Chairman, I think all the departments are going to be looking at increases. I know that the development tax is hypothetically a $2.6 million increase from the current development tax, the new schools facilities tax. This increase is going to take lot prices up by the tens, not the hundreds.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be seeing this from all departments across the board. I support increases. I support now's the time. I just want to have some caution to how far we go. We can certainly address this every year or every 3 years, or don't have to let it go 12 or 13 years. I support the effort and the common sense y'all put into this thus far, as opposed to revising it and coming back to us. My thoughts.
Well, we have a motion and a second, so we need to vote on that motion unless anybody wants to alter that. I applaud you two, but I've known you two for a long time. You are two conservative guys. Super conservative. They don't ask for much, I'm telling you. You look at their budget every year, they do not ask for much. I'm just saying, make hay while the sun shines. This is still the cheapest county in the middle Tennessee to develop. That's why everybody's here. So it wouldn't hurt my feelings if you wanted to add some more money to that first item. But there is a motion and a second. This does not need a roll call, does it? Because we're not spending any money, right? Yes, it does. Okay, all right. Then, okay, so let's do a roll call. Rachel?
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
What was the item in here about mail outs?
I didn't know if you wanted to continue that discussion or not. The whole discussion on the fees kind of evolved from the mail-outs, so I didn't know if you guys wanted to continue the discussion on that tonight, or if you wanted to, we've been up here for a while already, didn't know if you wanted to push that to the next meeting. We'd be more than
If
happy.
it's something timely, we'll hear it. If it can wait, we'll wait.
Well, it's just a continuation of the discussion that we had. Currently, we do 500 feet notice mail-outs to properties within 500 feet. There was some discussion about raising that possibly either to 750 or 1,000 or something of that nature, and it led to the discussion on upping our fees and everything. So that's kind of what it
Was it just did you do some homework and say that's going to increase your fees
Well,
by
what you look
approximately
at,
X
yes, sir.
percentage?
When you look at the copy, the file says copy of mail. I don't know why I did that. Sorry. Copy of mail out cost analysis revised. So let me open that up real quick.
Thank you.
Here we go. Oh, here we go. When you look at, this is just using a couple. Well, I say a couple. This is using the rezonings that we had at the time and the Board of Zoning Appeals that we had at the time as far as this is just postage, of course. But what you're looking at is basically the number of mailings and also the cost of those mailings. Basically, when you go from 500 to 1,000, you're basically doubling it. If you go 500 to 750, it's about half, 50% increase, which you're looking at, both in the number of mail-outs and also in the cost of those mail-outs for postage.
I think I'm the one that initiated this, and, you know, personally, I'm in favor of let's go with 1,000 feet. You know, we're talking about an extra $1,000 on that line item. I think we can afford that. So I'll make a motion that we go to 1,000 feet. And if we have to amend your budget and you can't find it somewhere else, we'll dig it out. But
It's a small price to pay to keep the neighborhoods informed about what's going on. So we have a motion. I need a second. And a second. Roll call, please. Rachel? And hey, did you factor in that postage is going up like next week or something?
I don't think so.
Okay. I think it is, isn't it? Isn't postage going up next week?
Wouldn't surprise me any.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Kush.
Yes. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
All right, Mac Nolan, come see us. You only have one item in your folder? Am I looking at that wrong? No, you're good. We're good.
Good evening. Commissioner Blair and I spent a little time together one afternoon last week. You got any comments on what we saw?
Crushing experience.
Smash It is who we've been using as a contractor for the last few years to crush some of our loads, and some of you have seen that operation before. This is their competition. They actually have competition now. So they wanted to come do a demonstration. The trucks are real similar. Actually, there's two different manufacturers that build the trucks, but it's all the same family. They got mad at each other, so they're building across the road from each other. So there's not a lot of difference in the trucks, but they did the crushing. And it turned out pretty good. First thing that we have is the landfill report. Landfill has been running kind of slow. The weather, it's a whole lot of rain and a whole lot of heat, so it's not helping a whole lot. And then we did finish the sumps. We've talked about the leachate sumps that we dug, and we had to open holes, and then there's an engineered sump. So we got both engineered sumps installed. One of the holes was completed, filled in. The other one we're still waiting on the leachate to get pumped out in a timely fashion. And then the weather was hurting us as well. Any questions on the landfill?
So the sumps are operating as you anticipated?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, this is a general question on landfills, not just ours, but have we been getting any smell complaints? And you may not be the one to ask that to, but I remember sitting in a meeting here a while back, and Republic told us that come July there would be no more stink. I'm just curious have we been fielding any reports on smell and complaints on smell?
Not very many through my office. We still get occasionally a call. I'm trying to remember where I was one night last week and smelled it, and I was kind of surprised to smell it where I was. And it was somewhere north of, between here and Walter Hill, somewhere in that part of town, off of Memorial, somewhere in there. And then at my house, I live over in Leanna community. If you were a good ball player, you could throw a baseball from my house to the old Jordan farm. And, that's where they spray the water now. And occasionally late in the evening, I can smell it in my house, but I have to be outside to smell it.
You talk about what they're spraying or from the landfill?
No, I actually smell the landfill odor. The odorizer, I don't smell at my house.
So you do not smell the landfill at your house? Make sure I understand you.
I do not smell their deodorizer at my house. I smell the actual odor.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm finally getting your gist.
Right.
Well, I've been cutting hay right next to them this week, and I haven't smelled anything. That's what brought it up. So normally when I smell it, it's over on the Compton Road area up through there. Pretty well. Yeah.
A lot of times the odor is in the evenings when the weather's cooling off, the sun's going down, and that's when the odor is a little more pronounced. Any other landfill questions? Convenience centers. The convenience centers have stayed busy. We're still 4 drivers short, and we're still convenience center attendant employees short, but we're still making things work. I had a driver scheduled to start work today, and he wound up going to work for Atomic. So he's actually going to be hauling garbage, but he's going to be using the tractor trailers and coming out of Nashville, bringing it to Middle Point. So we're still on the look for that. Any questions on the landfill report? I mean the convenience center side, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm full of questions
okay.
Tonight. You
I'll try to answer them.
Not just you. Talking about convenience centers, and something we do at Paws, we use some of the, I guess they're inmates over at the detention center to work there voluntarily. And I was just curious, a couple things. Somebody actually brought this to my attention and asked the question is, you know, we have these guys out on the road, and I know our superintendent's not here tonight, that's picking up the trash. But I was curious is, could we possibly, if these guys wanted to, I don't think we need to force anybody to work in our convenience centers, or at least go in there and help sort through. You know, we get contamination in plastic or the paper where somebody throws a plastic bag, you know, provide them with some long canes or something like that and let them stand there and sort for us so we don't have rejects going out. I'm just curious as what your thoughts on that might be.
Trying to transport them to and from would be a logistics issue. And then we have a lot of females, and not necessarily all females, some of them's males, that don't want to be around those guys in orange. That when we were doing the road pickup, you know, there's a lady we call that we would actually load them back into the van and drive past her house and not pick up anything, get them down the road and then get them back out.
I understand, but you know, my question still is out there is, you know, we've got, and I assume it's kind of like a trustee, some of them that are working at Paws or in the past they have, you know, would it be possible? And I understand there may be employees that object to it, but assuming there's not, or, you know, there could be a schedule change there, is that something we might look at?
I'm sure we can look at it. I mean, the workhouse, we were doing it, and then they didn't want solid waste employees dealing with the inmates, so they may still not want to do it that way.
Yeah, now, I'm not talking about forced labor here. I'm talking about us paying these guys, you know, whatever our rates are to, you know, have them work and, you know, put some money in their pocket and maybe get them on the right track of doing something.
Yeah, we can look at that, can't we, Mr. Mayor? Okay. Any other questions on that? All right, let's go back and revisit, or you need to vote first?
We can vote, get it out of the way. Need a motion to accept both those landfill and convenience center reports.
Motion to accept.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
OIT and the trustee's office has Haley Road ready to where they can accept cards. We talked about it briefly last month. The charge is from 1 penny to $50 is $2 per transaction. And then if it goes $50 and a penny to 100 is $2.95. 700 transactions. 36 of those 700 were over $50. That's 5%. Of those 36 transactions, 5 were actually residential. The rest of them, the 31, was either another government or another department of ours or, a business that wrote checks. We're currently paying 33 cents a pound to get rid of televisions and monitors and 19 cents a pound to get rid of some other incidental. 70% of what we're paying for is televisions and monitors at 33 cents a pound. And then the other 30% is the 19 cents a pound. So, and we don't have to vote on it tonight. We just need to, think about it, or we can vote on it tonight if you're ready. But what I would like to do is charge 31 cents a pound, and we charge for the actual pounds to where we don't do the rounding that we're currently do, plus 2, and that would be the $2 transaction fee. But that would be charging for everything that comes through.
Mac, how's that going to work out as far as charging them? Are we going to be able to use cards there? Or okay, I just want to get that straight, because I assume you're going to work this into round numbers, or it doesn't matter, I guess, if you're
With
using
the
a
card, it just might as well just charge what it is.
Okay.
And we're not intended to make money. We're intended just to break even on it. And then the other thing is we're trying to get away from accepting cash.
And I fully understand that and support that move. Have you talked with Ted?
Yes, sir.
His works. Okay.
Well, I lost her name. Julie. Julie's who I've been talking with more than Ted.
So if I heard correctly, continue the 33 cents a pound, 31, I'm sorry, and 33 cents a pound, and then a $2 flat fee on top of that, which is basically covering the credit card cost.
That's correct.
Okay.
So what I'm proposing is our fee structure would change to 33 cents a pound, period, plus 2, and the plus $2 is what that would be.
All right.
And if it goes over $50, we still just charge the 2. We'll lose 95 cents.
Okay. Pretty simple.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a
Second.
second from Shanto.
The main thing I want to say on that is we're not trying to make money off of this. We're trying to cover our cost.
Right.
So I've had people call me and ask, well, what does it cost to take this stuff down to Haley Road? And I've tried to explain it to them. They're not really happy about that. But, being able to see that this is actual cost, this is not something we're trying to gouge anybody with. So.
And we're the same way at the landfill on tires. We pay $65 a ton, and that's basically what we charge.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes. All right, Matt, go ahead.
We'll have to advertise and stuff before we start. So I'd like to start October 1, but I think that's going to be too soon. Any thoughts on that?
That's fine with us. I'm sure there'll be signage out front where people will be able to read while they're in line to understand what they're about to do.
Right.
Okay.
Unless y'all have questions, that's all I have.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Phil?
I'm sorry, I voted on your report because I thought we were going to look at your Fund 116 separately. May I ask a question about your Fund 116 that's included?
Yes, sir.
If I'm reading it correctly, it's our fiscal year report. Some of your items are at 40 to 60% of your fiscal year. We're only 12 or 15% into the year, and your total budget is already pushing 40%. And are you concerned that you're going to go over budget?
We have to work off of a purchase order system. So when we fill out a purchase order, we're purchasing for a month or more months, in that one purchase order. So we've got money obligated to spend with whichever company that is with. So it looks as if we've already spent it. We've not spent it. It's just been encumbered. Does that make sense?
And your fees to private agencies is a big part of it. That scenario fits that. You're paying ahead to some of those private agencies.
Right. What we'll do is we'll request a purchase order, and then we'll start deducting off of that purchase order until we've almost extinguished it, and then before we run out, we'll go ahead and do another one.
And so that being at 36% for your total budget at 12% of the year is not unusual for that fund?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? All right. Thank you. All right, I believe that brings us to old business. Is that right, Rachel? Okay, yeah, I'm trying to pull it up. Oh, yeah, convenience center updates. Mayor, you want to take that over?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, as you will recall, we were looking to remodel, if you will, 4 of our convenience centers. And we gave direction to Mr. Jay Bradley and his firm to do the environmental. We were going to do many others, but we pulled back to only 4 as opposed to the ones that we were actually looking at. And we've already done a lot of the geotech work and et cetera. So I'd like to, without objection, Mr. Chairman, bring Mr. Bradley up, and we've kind of talked about 4 of the sites and kind of give a timeline to the committee of where we would be, what has passed. He's been talking, I think he met with Smyrna Planning Director today, and we're talking about the facility at Weekly. We were looking to move it down from the current site that we're currently at on Weekly, trying to get away from that traffic jam, to the property that we currently own down next to the clerk's office. Even though Mr. Hughes had shown us previously how the FEMA map is changing on that site, I was informed today, I think they informed Mr. Bradley as well, that they can't go forward until FEMA actually changes it. And even though the floodplain is receding, we have to go with what is currently there, which would mean we would have to elevate anything that was electric, which would be our compactors and any electrical work going into the building where the attendant would be staying. So, and may want to bring up Mike as well to talk about that facility. But Jay has kind of a timeline. We're probably looking ready to go out to bid right before Christmas, if we could put all 4 of them out together at one time. So without objection, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jay. Come on up. And if I skipped over you from 5 to 6, I owe you a lunch, man. I'm sorry.
From 5 to 6?
If you had to sit, well, on the agenda, if you had to sit through Mac's report.
Oh, that's all right.
I should have got you in front.
That's no problem.
I owe you a lunch.
So I guess to give a quick update, we did submit 2 of the 4 quote site plans, I guess, for the renovations of the Rockville site and the Leanna site. That was about a week and a half ago to Planning and Engineering. We also met, excuse me, we met with Smyrna this morning, and discuss some of the restrictions on the site. The most significant, I guess, as the mayor said, was the floodplain elevation. There have been proposed map revisions to the floodplain elevations in that area or for that piece of property. It's about a 2.5-foot elevation difference, so that would have a pretty significant impact on cost for renovating that site. They spoke with FEMA about what we could do as far as design, if we could design off of the proposed elevations versus designing off of the existing, and they were instructed that until the maps are officially approved, we would have to design off of the current elevations. He did allude, I met with Tom Rose with Smyrna and the planning director, I'm sorry? Kevin, yes. And they alluded to there would be potential we could design off of to the new flood elevations, but all of the approvals would be contingent upon those maps being approved. So if, for example, they would have some kind of contingent approval and those maps didn't get approved, then we'd basically have to start back over and design to those maps. So that's kind of the, I guess, the sticking point for the design of that site. The fourth is the Walter Hill site, which we are meeting this Thursday to look at a site further into Landfill Road. And so we'll have a better idea of what we want to do and where that one will be located later this week.
Commissioner Piercy, would you like to, if it meets with your calendar, would you like to meet with us?
Yes, if it's where I can, I'd like to be there.
Okay. We're going to go all the way up Landfill Road into our complex, and we need to get Mr. Brooks there because that is on his list, I believe, is his road. So he'll need to approve any or look at any improvements that need to be made to his road. Okay.
Jay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
When are you going to look?
I think the idea is about 12:30 on Thursday.
This coming Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So we could meet right there at the center at 12:30 if that works for
yes, sir.
Everyone's schedule.
Jay, I didn't hear all the details on the weekly site. Is the FEMA flood map going to increase the water 30 inches or decrease the water 30 inches?
Decrease. It's the elevation is dropping.
Okay.
That might come
The proposed 100-year flood elevation
receding.
Is receding.
Okay.
Correct.
That's good. You can sit back down.
So you designed to that 100-year flood elevation, and then all your electric is 1 foot even above that.
Yeah. So, and we're 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5.
2.5 feet. So I'm thinking, Mr. Chairman, that we move forward with the anticipation that those maps will come forward and be decreased. If not, we kind of went through the process of planning commission. By the time we went to purchasing, we put it out to bid. We're looking somewhere second, third week of December, and if we get to that point and FEMA hasn't retracted or implemented the new flood maps, then we just hold off on that one and proceed ahead, because to go back in and redesign and to try to elevate that location would be much more expensive.
Yeah.
Right?
So the idea would be to start construction just, as soon as weather allows the first of the year.
All right, and Jay, for the listening public, would you recite those 4 locations?
Leanna site, the improvements to the existing Leanna site, the Rockville site, the proposed Weekly Road site, which is proposed to be at the corner of G Street and 11th.
G Street and 11th.
The Walter Hill site off of Landfill Road.
We have to reach out, Mr. Chairman, to CUD because there is a water line that's still it's on the site at Rockvale, and we'll need to see if they're willing to move that water line.
All right, last comment or question about that is, Mac's still here. We chatted a few months ago about our concern about our invitee list, bidders invitee list, that we felt that based on past experience of lack of participation, that we may not have an up-to-date list. And I think there was some discussion about getting with, not HR, but you're pointing at Jay? So Jay.
We briefly discussed that this
Okay.
afternoon. What we historically do is we'll send plans and specifications to contractor plan holder rooms.
Yeah, like McGraw-Hill,
McGraw-Hill,
Construction
yeah,
Insight,
that's
those
correct.
folks. All right.
So every contractor in the state that has a subscription to that
Yeah.
service.
All right.
Announcement. If there's specific contractors we feel that this would, that this is the type of work that they would be geared toward, then we can send the advertisement directly to them
Fantastic.
as well. So we'll get it out to as many folks as we can.
All right, very good. Any
Chairman.
Bill?
Jay, what's your expectation for the FEMA report, or what's the status of them moving that along? Any guess?
In our meeting this morning, it could be 6 months, could be a year.
Could we push that along? Could we supplement a LOMAR of some kind and push that along? Has there been a letter of map revision done, or is this something FEMA's doing internally?
We briefly discussed a letter of map revision this morning as well. We thought that process would probably take about the same amount of time as the approval. As far as pushing that final approval of the maps, I don't know.
They were supposed to have the public hearings like this month, next month. We don't know if it's due to the pandemic flaring up again or a challenge from the city of Murfreesboro on a particular maps that they have that might have delayed the approval. So we'd have to do a full flood study for that property, which would include the lake and surrounding properties. So it would be pretty expensive to do that. So there are other options that we can do for a non-residential house. You can flood-proof a structure by elevating the electrical components, anchoring the structure down, allowing flood vents to allow the water to go through and one side and out the other. It's not favorable, but you don't have to build up as high. So that might be an option as well, to design those structures to be flood-proofed.
Have you ever seen FEMA react to a letter of approval being site-specific?
It's usually tied to a specific flood study. So if your property is in a particular stretch of a stream or creek or in this case the lake, it would have to be encompassed in that study. So they would have to study from point A to point B, and your property would have to be in the middle. So,
and I guess they determine point A and point B.
Any questions for these two?
I was thinking point A would be 11th Street and point B would be G Street.
It's usually much wider.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Jay. All right, that now brings us to other business. And you want me to start, Craig, or would you like to open up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, I would like to open discussion on Rutherford County dissolving the regional board and creating a board of one county, which is allowable by TCA, of including Rutherford County only, as well as all of its municipalities. I feel that this county has grown to a size that we should be able to handle the problem that we have with waste management within our own. And this would be something that we would be in agreement with the municipalities and Rutherford County, and we would be able, as a body, to decide the structure of this board, into which who can be on it, how many can be on it, and what's that look like for our county. I do not feel, based on the lawsuit that Republic filed against the regional board, I do not feel that Rutherford County with the size has to be with 4 other counties, in which 2 of them don't even deliver their trash here. So that's 13 votes. 8 of them are not Rutherford County or Murfreesboro. So I feel that Rutherford County can make those hard decisions within ourselves. We are the 4th largest county in the state, and it's time that we are able and have the opportunity to do this within our own county. TCA does allow and says that a regional board can be one county. So I want to open that up for discussion as to how this board feels, and I'd like to see us go forward. It'll take a year to do this, and I think that we should get going on this and start the process.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, go ahead and ask questions.
Craig, do we, in your study, do we have to dissolve that board, or can we simply vacate that board and start our own? That's the question. Do we have to dissolve that one, or can we just vacate?
We have to, I think the correct term is we separate from that board. That board can continue as they wish. There has been conversation that board would continue as the 3 remaining counties. But as Craig stated, those 3 have certainly not experienced the growth that Rutherford County has. He correctly stated that 2 of those don't have the issue with their solid waste coming to our county. So any of the votes that they would have would be politically driven, not economically or the fact that they are living it, breathing it, touching it, smelling it like we are. So if we want to be in control, it would be best, in my opinion, to separate as an individual Rutherford County board.
Presently, Davidson County is their own separate entity. So Chairman Harris said that we'd be able to set our committee as we desire. Is that not already set up by state statute? How that has to be set up, even if we were to go it alone? I'm just curious. I don't know.
That's a great question. I don't have the answer to that. I think my personal opinion is the fair thing to do is we are trying to partner or extending an opportunity to partner with the city of Murfreesboro, Eagleville, Laverne, and Smyrna, right? Did I get them all?
That's correct.
Right. We haven't really, in my opinion, all been on the same page as of yet. And we're getting down to that final point into the year, ball game, whatever analogy you want to use, where we have to get input from them. They have to feel like they are a part of this conversation. So, you know, if we had a board of 7, have Smyrna, Eagleville, Laverne, 1, 2, 3, maybe 2 from Rutherford County, maybe 2 from Murfreesboro, that's 7. I'm just throwing that out there. But we've got to all of us come together in a group, sit down at a table, and all feel like we're going to be part of the solution. And if they don't want to be part of the solution, we need to know that now, right? We're talking to technologies about tonnage and needs and how big a building, how many acres, and we really can't give them a firm answer until we know who in the county who's going to play. And I think it's fair that we start asking some questions for those cities, what their participation level is going to be. And until we're all sitting at a table together, I don't think we're going to get a solid answer from anybody. So that's where I'm at, and I see the mayor's got his finger on the button, so go ahead.
I'll concur, Mr. Chairman. In previous conversations over the last, how long we've been working on this, I have continually asked each one of the mayors, are you on board, are you in? They have participated. They've gone with us to Sevierville. They've gone with us to California. They've attended or looked at Wasteway up in McMinnville. I think they're in, but they don't know they're in for what.
Yeah.
And for where are we headed? But I think that if we, and they've expressed the same opinion that I've expressed to them, if we're going to determine our own destiny, I think that in all due respect to Warren County, Coffee County, and Cannon County, like Warren and Coffee take their garbage to Ray County. They put it in an open top, long haul truck, take it over Mount Eagle Mountain and take it up to Ray County through Chattanooga. And what does that cost? But if we're going to concentrate on determining our own destiny, and we don't want Metro's trash coming here, and we don't want another 32 counties, I don't think it's quite that many as being stated, maybe 1 or 2 trucks a year from some of those counties, but the majority, 60, 70% of the trash that comes here comes from Metro. So if we want to determine our own destiny, I think that it's a good move to start that process now, Mr. Chairman.
And I want to be clear, this is not to be confused with a solid waste authority.
Right.
That may or may not be something a little bit farther down the road. But this is just a Rutherford County only solid waste advisory board.
Right.
Okay, which is made up of county city officials to get their head together, team up, decide what the future holds.
It's state mandated, correct? It's state mandated
Yes.
that the county has to have some participation.
Yes,
That's correct.
yeah. And for, I think, obvious reasons, like for us to be in control, we need to separate from our current partnership.
Yeah, but before we got into this RFP situation, none of us had even heard of this board.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, you may have, but we were able to ignore it. We were able to stay ignorant, and we can no longer stay ignorant of that. And then we found out how critical it was. Then the board became crucial, and then the board made a decision, and the consequences of that, we don't know yet what they are. So very timely, Chairman Harris, I applaud you for looking for opportunities to enhance our solid waste issue. I'm not ready to make a motion for it because I don't know all the pieces, but if somebody else makes a motion, whatever, but I definitely think we need to look hard at this, and if not go forward tonight, I think by next month, if we have questions, let's ask them, and perhaps we have a motion next month. But I think it's time, Chairman.
I'm pretty sure it obviously has to go to full commission to get full approval to then go through the paperwork for application. But yeah, going back to your solid waste board, shame on me, shame on us for not knowing the full ramifications or importance of the board as now we know it. We didn't know what we didn't know, but now we do. And so now we got to shore that up and fix that. But yeah, Wayne, go ahead.
I see a positive mentality from this committee so far. So where do we go from here?
This committee or this topic?
Start the process.
About this topic
Reply.
from this committee.
Oh,
I've
yes.
heard 4 positive responses so far.
Oh, okay. To go forward, I believe we then have to make the request which then would mean Nick or a legal individual would have to, or even perhaps a Becky Caldwell, would have to prepare the form that we fill out, a request to form our Rutherford County Independent Board, and send that to the state for approval. Then somebody has to bird dog that for the next several months until that gets okayed. That part I'm fuzzy about, but that to me would be the logical step, is a legal explanation on what we need to do, and then B, fill out the form work and get it done.
Also, we'd have to have a resolution from each county
City.
saying that they will, that we opt out of this.
Okay.
So it'll be, we got to have, all three of them, including us, would have to have a resolution and then opting out, which to my understanding would not be a problem.
Well, we would also have to have a resolution, Mr. Chairman, from the cities, and we would have to work simultaneously as the request is going to TDEC. We would need resolutions from each city council of those other 4 cities saying that they want to join.
Makes sense.
You know, as we start forming that, we want to make sure that they're on board and we've got resolutions passed by them. I think it would also give us a great opportunity as we start the process to ask questions of TDEC, to dive even deeper into where is the money going that's supposed to be shared with each one of those regions. For the dollar per tire that was set in place in the code for every tire that was sold, it was supposed to go to each one of the regions to help buy tire shredders. I think that was passed in 1992. I think there was, Senator McNally passed a bill, probably 2016, that said for every new tire that was sold on each new car, there was 50 cents per tire, so that's $2 per every new tire sold goes to TDEC to work towards solid waste and to be distributed back to the solid waste boards. Those are dollars that could come back that we need to get those questions answered from TDEC as well.
So sounds like a meeting forthcoming with them would be in order. So, yes, Robert.
Of course, the mayor just hit on this, and my question out of all of this is the municipalities. And let's just assume that they all will say, all 4 of them and us would form an entity or regional covenant or whatever we want to call it. But what if 1, 2, or more say, hey, we don't want to do this? Is this something we want to proceed with just Rutherford County and say maybe one of the municipalities? Is that something we want to do, or do we want to hold out for all of them?
I'm not sure that we have any authority to make them do it. And if, let's just say, Eagleville or Laverne opts not to join and they just want to keep doing what they're doing with the private sector, let people pick up trash, but it would be to their advantage and their citizens to participate.
Well, I think it would too, but I'm just saying, you know, we hadn't fleshed this out to see, you know, what their ideas on it, or at least I haven't.
Yeah, I think
you may have a good feeling. I know you've said in the past that these guys are in, you know, but this is a little bit different horse here.
Well, everybody says they're in until it's actually time to step in, and you just don't know. We'll never know unless we take the first step and start asking those questions.
So the question still is, do we want to proceed if we have 1 or 2 that say, no, we don't want to do this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Robert, that's a great question. I would think from a TCA standpoint, this would be a Rutherford County Advisory Board. They could probably care less who we fill it with. So whether it's all Rutherford County or a combination of Rutherford County and municipality representatives, that's something TC, they'll have to tell us. But yeah, in terms of now's the time, you're either with us or you're oh, you're not against us, but you're either with us or just get out of the way. Wait,
Yeah, when I said the municipalities, Robert, we're offering a piece, we're offering to be compatible, to work with the county, the municipalities. They cannot make or break it. I mean, the county can have its own regional board with one county. But I feel, that we need to include the municipalities because they're in Rutherford County and they are dealing with the waste management problem that we have now. So that's where I said that. Now, I've talked to the attorney, and there is a lot of things we got to do, and it'll take a year, like I said. But I feel like that we're big enough now that we can do this. And I think it's, let's just take, for example, the lawsuit against the regional board now. All right, the people who's going to pay the brunt of this legal fees is going to be Murfreesboro and Rutherford County. And that is what it is. But my whole thing is to approve this. There's 13 votes. 8 of them are not us. There's 4 of us in Rutherford County that are making a vote, and this is something that could drastically be in the thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm not saying, good or bad on that at all. What I'm saying is I'd rather us have our own destiny in our own hands and make our own decisions for our own county. And the law allows this to happen, but there's things we got to do, and a resolution would be the first one. And then the paperwork, and then the county attorney and the mayor will take it from there. So if I ask any questions, I just feel like I want us to be commissioners who look, me and Commissioner Piercy don't agree really much on much, but I tell you one thing I do agree with him. He's looking at his grandchildren 30 years from now. And I'm trying to look as this county, I try to look at the county, not what we can do in the next budget year, but what we can do in the next 20 years. And we're just growing and growing and growing, and we can do this on our own and not need anything else. So, thank you.
Two questions. Do we need a motion? And maybe if you want to sleep on it, that's perfectly fine. We have a meeting coming up in a few weeks. Do we need a motion perhaps then to at least move this forward to let the next step, which would be to have legal and the mayor look at the formwork and request to TCA or TDEC, whoever really the governing body would be, or to request to opt out and the others to opt in, or do we just want to sleep on it till our meeting on the 30th, 20th?
Before we make a motion to vote it in or out or whatever, my question would be, now the mayor said there's 2 counties that doesn't even bring trash here, so that leaves one other one. Where does that leave that county if we pull out of their group? Does it leave them hanging? Are they in jeopardy? Are they on their own?
No, so they can continue to form the same board that they have. It'd just be, Rutherford County would not be part of it. They can still continue their regional board with those 3 counties.
But will they have the power they would have if Rutherford County is not involved in it?
They're still going to take their trash to where they're taking it now. I think County brings some of the trash to Middle Point. They don't? Okay. So they're taking it to Manchester? All right, if they're going to Manchester, then that's 3 that are going to Ray County.
Not that I'm against this, but I sat right back there in that corner the other night and watched that committee, and really I think some of the other counties had a pretty good influence on swaying the vote to recommend them not to expand. That's my concern there.
Well, I understand. Good point. Good point. You want to just hold off till the 20th and sleep on this, or what's your pleasure?
How about going ahead and allowing the attorney to put together a blueprint of how this might progress, and then bringing that back to the committee?
Okay. Is that a motion?
I wouldn't, do you have to have a motion?
Well,
I mean, are we ready for a motion yet? Maybe,
We can ask him to do that. If you want a motion, Mr. Chairman, we can. I would think he might need a little more time than just 1 month, because this has never been done before.
Yeah.
Yes. These were created in 1991, 92, and he might have to do a lot of researching.
Yeah.
May know where it's already marked in the book. I don't know.
How
We
about
need to be flexible with it.
how about we grant the mayor and Nick the time to review and investigate what it would take for us to form our own?
And we can come back and make a formal
Yeah,
report to you
yeah.
at that point in time, if that's acceptable, Mr. Chairman.
Let's just go on the investigative side at this point. Is that okay? All right. Thank you. Any other old business or any more discussion on that topic? Seeing none, let me remind you all, please, September 20th, these are at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, I forget. 5:30, September 20th, 5:30, Republic. September 30th, 5:30, Waste Away. October 12th, Waste Management, 5:30. Got it? October 12th, Waste Management. We'll see you on the 20th for Republic Services. Do your homework. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.